Alright, so I've got my little setup here for cutting all my 2x3s, and I've got my jigsaw set up, and I attached this metal, one of these Simpson Strong Tie L things, and I attached that to my table so that it acts as a jig for me so that I can just cut, because I've got to cut 20 or so pieces at 19.5 and then a bunch at 33, so this will cut the 20 pieces quickly. So I cut all of the 19.5-inch pieces first using my jig, and then I moved on to all the longer pieces, the 30-something inch pieces for the rest of the chairs second. And after I cut all my lumber, I cleaned up my saw area and then used my square, my speed square, to cut the bottom corner off of the legs so that that diagonal piece would sit flat on the ground, the piece that I cut the 20-degree cuts. And then I went ahead and drilled all of my pocket holes in 8 of the 19.5-inch pieces, and then after that I used a tape measure and marked off the 13, and I think 3/4 was the measurement. I marked a line on all the rest of the 19.5-inch pieces. So I marked the 13 3/4 and then used my speed square to draw a line so that I could line up my diagonal piece right to that, quick and easy. So I've got all my pieces cut. I'm making 4 chairs, so I've got all my pieces cut, and on the 19.5-inch pieces I went ahead and marked the line at 13 3/4, and I went ahead and put all the pocket holes in the 19.5-inch pieces. So now really all I have to do is just assemble everything. So I'll show you how I did that. So I've got my plans here. You're going to grab your one piece that's the 31 3/4 piece, along with one of the 19.5 pieces that you marked here. So this is going to be the arm. This is the top of the arm, this is the front of the arm, which is basically the leg, and you're going to screw that together with the arm on top, not in front. The arm goes on top, and put 2 screws in right here. Clamp this or just hold it. And I'm gonna put this with my line that I drew at 13 3/4 on the inside, because then we're gonna line up that piece to the top of that piece to this line that goes that way, and I'll show you that next. So, and go ahead and get yourself some self-tapping screws. 2.5 inches what the plans call for. I like to use these GRK screws. The GRK work really nice, that you don't have to pre-drill. If you don't use the GRK and you just use exterior screws, you're liable to go ahead and split the ends of your wood, so use self-tapping. Okay, now you're going to grab a piece that you cut at the 20-degree parallel piece that you cut, and the reason why we drew our line and put it on the inside is because this has to line up like that. So the way that I did this, actually, I already have the other ones all assembled, is I put this one like this and drilled it, and then the next one, put it together like this. So flip it back and forth every time if you're doing multiple chairs, put your screws in and flip it like this and like this. Does that make sense? So that, because this piece here has to be at the mirror on both sides of the chair, those pieces have to be on the inside, so it's got to be a mirror like she says in the plans. So if you just flip this piece every time you put this on, you'll be good. Okay, so there's that. I don't know if you'll be able to see the whole thing there, but that's that piece. This is a little off, but we'll fix that when we get the back piece on. So I need to do one more of these. I'll add that to the... Okay, so step 2 in the plans is to put this back piece on the 19.5-inch piece that you drilled the pocket holes into on either side. So you're going to lay that down with the pocket holes up, because once this whole thing is flipped over, the pocket holes will be on the bottom. You won't see them. The it'll be nice and smooth. Grab my square, make sure that's nice and square and even on this side. And now we can flip this over and you'll see where we're at. Okay, so there it is. So we just attached the 19.5-inch piece with the pocket holes here, which is the back of the chair. This is upside down, sitting on the tops of its arms right now. So we're going to flip this to the front of the arms, which is essentially the legs. And we're going to put another 19.5-inch piece with pocket holes on both ends in right. One quick thing when you get to step 2 that you definitely want to avoid in step 2 is when you put the 19.5-inch pieces in the back here and then across the front there with the pocket holes. Your 2 side pieces, make sure that you have them set up so that this support here is on the inside of this piece, not fastened to the outside. Okay, so I'm going to show you something with this that I thought was a little bit confusing on the plans, and I've made 4 chairs. This is my 4th chair, and I did it a little bit different than the plans on a couple of my chairs. So this is the back piece that sits behind your back, and then there's another 19.5-inch piece that you put pocket holes in for this front. We flipped the chair up, and here's the piece. I don't know if you can see it. But here's the piece, and it seems like this piece should be installed right there. The plans aren't super clear about this, and they could be, but when you sit in the chair, this piece kind of blocks your legs, like your calves are up against this. So this piece really actually needs to be put back here on the chair, between these 2 pieces. So this one's in incorrectly. The very first chair I did, I actually eliminated this piece. I didn't realize you needed a piece there, and then I realized, oh, I've got extra of these, so then I recognized that I had to put a piece here. Okay, so here's the chair where I have that front piece, which is this, installed back here, which I originally installed it on this piece. And it makes for a much more comfortable chair, plus then this piece sits flush. Here's the one chair where I have not changed this piece yet. So you see this piece of lumber is installed right here on these front arms, and you see how it like sticks out in front of the chair seat. So I need to flip this over, probably take this piece off, and move this back so that it's sitting actually up underneath there, attached to the diagonal supports. See what I'm saying? And now here's the very first chair that I did, that I stained up and everything, because I am like that. I like to see a finished product real fast, so I usually will finish one totally. Well, this one, this was the very first one I put together, so I didn't even realize that there was supposed to be a 19.5 piece across there. And I just didn't put it. It would have probably, I don't know if it would do anything. The chair is totally sturdy, and I don't feel like it even needs it. I may or may not put that in, who knows? Depends upon time and how I feel about it. So anyway, I did this so far 3 different ways, so the plans are a little bit confusing on that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and take this piece off and put it in the right place on this one. Okay, so you want to make sure that this top piece is flush with the top of this so that your seat boards can sit flat on top of here. Okay, so the next step is to put on the seat boards, which are the 22.5-inch boards. Now, I did not follow the plans on this because the plans call for 1-bys. I had all these 2-bys that were given to me, so I decided to just go ahead and use these 2-bys. They're a little worn out. I mean, you know, they're not perfect, so I had to sand them in order to make them look good. And in the plans it calls for 2 10-inch. I used 3 6-inch, I think. Yeah. These are 2x6s, so I used 3 of them. So because of that, my angle might be a little bit different. So fasten these. Okay, then the next step after doing the backboards is to attach the 33-inch long ones that are going to support the back. I have those guys here. Now this is where I did something a little bit different as well. I brought it back just a little bit so you could see the whole thing a little bit better. So these are the long boards, and on the plans, I believe she says to line them up with the bottom of this support and then put two screws in here and put two screws or one screw here, I don't know. But I did not want my backs to be so tall, and that might be a characteristic of Adirondack chairs, but I felt like the proportion of the back, and maybe it's because I'm using 2x, but I felt with this being so tall, the proportions were off, one. And two, when I'm looking from my house down toward the lake and the fire pit and everything, I want a clear view of the lake. So I made the backs shorter. And the way I did it is I just pushed this board all the way down to hit the floor, and I put screws there and put my screws here. And then I took my Sawzall and just cut that off. And that's just the way I did it because that worked out for me. Okay, now after putting that there and screwing that in, I'll do the other side, but you want to make sure this piece is level here before you put these screws in. So I did use my level, and just make sure that you are perfectly level before you put these screws in. Now for the back pieces, I used a 1x and just set a 1x on my seat to give me a space before my back piece, because you don't want to just set your back piece on top of this piece and screw it in right on top of there. There really needs to be a space here so that water will drain out of here. It'll just roll off and drain. I just put a piece there and screwed these in, and then what I did is I used a screws distance between I used screws as my spacers basically. And then after I put 4 boards on the back, so I'll do 3 more, and then I will sand everything, round out the corners nice, and then put a coat of dark stain on. One more thing, I don't know if this is in the plans either, but I went ahead and did my backboards from the bat because I could, as my 2.5-inch screws reach. So there they are, the 4 chairs all finished at my fire pit, all stained. Now we just need to put some firewood and light a fire. And then my 2 pillows that I made with the box type border, I'll show you this one. It's in the shade a little bit better. But the cushions will be my tutorial next week. See that cute little box type detail with the diagonal? I cut that on the bias so it would be a diagonal stripe. Aren't they so cute? So anyway, there's my chairs. Oh, and I threw together that table right there with the scrap lumber that I had left over from my chairs, just so there's a place to set a drink and a pitcher of iced tea or lemonade or something. And that board there, I've just left it there for the summertime when we're really not burning fires here in Florida, so that we can set a drink on there as well. So there's my chairs all finished. So, I love them. Super cute.